On this week's Tuesday Night Titans, hypocrisy reigns supreme. Thank you for tuning in to another special episode of Tyler Vance Rants. I am your host, Tyler Vance himself. It is July 24th, 1984. On last week's Tuesday Night Titans, Wendy Richter was a bundle of nerves and demonstrated her strategy of doing her best when it came to her upcoming match against WWF Women's Champion, the Fabulous Moolah, an event which I just covered yesterday, which I'll also link in the description below for your viewing pleasure. The other major news from last week's Tuesday Night Titans was that guest Rowdy Roddy Piper had his integrity questioned by Vince McMahon, and when he defended himself, Hot Rod found himself permanently banned from TNT. Vince McMahon is once more the primary host of Tuesday Night Titans alongside Lord Alfred Hayes, and the very first guest tonight is none other than Tiger Chung Lee. The very first question that Vince McMahon asked Tiger Chung Lee is why he focuses so much on martial arts when in the ring. I don't know, to win matches? You're off to a great start, Vince. According to Tiger Chung Lee, being from South Korea, when he was growing up, he and every other young child there was forced to learn Taekwondo so that they could defend themselves appropriately. And the weapon that he carries to the ring with him is known as a kendo stick, an ancient Japanese weapon famously used in training by the samurai. This is interesting as it ties back to when the Korean peninsula in the early 20th century was under direct imperial Japanese rule, so it gives a little insight into that country's history as well as Tiger Chung Lee's own upbringing. The Taekwondo that Lee has mastered over the years is demonstrated to us next as he breaks bricks with his bare hands. Amazing! Next up is a 1-inch thick solid piece of oak, which Tiger Chung Lee breaks with ease. Well, let's see how he does with 2 of them. Not bad, despite the fact that he may be bleeding now, still very impressive. 2 pieces at once, 3, it's all a walk in the park for Tiger Chung Lee. The recent dissolution of the tag team that Tiger Chung Lee shared with Mr. Fuji is brought up by Vince, and McMahon wants to know how the South Korean feels about the whole situation. Lee makes it very clear that there is no way that he will ever team with Mr. Fuji ever again, and vows to make Mr. Fuji feel just the same amount of humiliation that Tiger Chung Lee felt at the hands of his former partner for issuing a challenge to Mr. Fuji.
I want to challenge him. I show you how Korean is stronger than Japanese.
Only time will tell if we will ever get an answer to it. Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff takes on B. Brian Blair next in singles competition, and before Mr. Wonderful is even able to properly get fully into the ring, the referee begins to admonish him for no reason. Hey ref, your bias is showing. The corrupt official then raises Brian Blair's hand as if he's already made the decision as who's going to win the match in his mind. What kind of NWA quality refereeing is this? Paul Orndorff tries to get into Blair's mind as the match begins, often backing himself up into a corner or using the ropes to avoid any kind of contact. This causes B. Brian to make a mistake, and Mr. Wonderful springs his trap. He unloads on B. Brian Blair and then goes to the top rope, trying to dive down onto his opponent, but unfortunately for Mr. Wonderful, Blair moves out of the way and then begins to focus his attacks on the now injured knee of Paul Orndorff. After an elbow drop, Brian Blair almost gets a 3 count, but it's only 2. After a lengthy toe hold from Blair, Orndorff manages to escape following an enziguri, and he goes to town on his opponent. However, B. Brian Blair is always impressive, and he manages to get another near fall following a crossbody. In response, Mr. Wonderful executes several power moves, but again, like Blair before him, can only get a 2 count. A roll-up almost gets B. Brian Blair another 3 count, but again, it's only a near fall. He then gets his second win and goes to the second rope, dropping an elbow onto Paul Orndorff's head. Following this, as B. Brian Blair tries to lift Mr. Wonderful up, Paul Orndorff reverses it and rolls Brian Blair up to get the 1-2-3. Wonderful match. World Wrestling Federation Senior Referee Dick Woehrle is the next guest on Tuesday Night Titans. We're shown footage of a recent match between George the Animal Steele and Steve Lombardi, a match that Dick Woehrle was in charge of, and also took some damage from the Animal himself. McMahon wants to know what Woehrle said to the Animal to get hit so viciously by George Steele.
Well, as soon as I said he was going to be fined, I just turned my head. The next thing I know, I was waking up on the floor.
Since Dick Woehrle's personal safety is obviously a factor when it comes to his officiating, Vince McMahon asks him if he would put his safety in front of the rules in order to protect himself. This is actually a very great question. I'm proud of you, Vince.
You try to be subjective. If one fella's doing something a little out of the way, you sort of let this slide by to keep the match going. I try to let certain things go.
Corrupt! Dick Woehrle just admitted that he gives wrestlers preferential treatment for his own personal safety. Get rid of this corrupt loser. McMahon scrambling to cover up the fact that Dick Woehrle, the senior referee of WWF, just admitted to being biased in the ring, tries to move the interview along by asking, how does it feel to have so much power in the ring? This interview is unraveling. The WWF senior referee reveals that he is allowing rules to be bent depending on how he feels the match is going. That's bias! Woehrle then lets us into his personal life, saying that he's been placed into several dangerous situations, especially when it comes to the rabid animals that call themselves fans. Because he has to make some decisions that these animals don't necessarily agree with sometimes, they have attacked him verbally, sometimes physically. So now he has a car parked as close to the arena's exit as possible. This guy sounds shady with every single thing that he says. This is the best in the referee division of the WWF? Hypocrisy! Special Delivery Jones is the third guest on Tuesday Night Titans, and Vince McMahon is full blast, asking Jones about what he thinks of the stalemate that Special Delivery's career seems to be in at the moment. Instead of answering the question right away, Special Delivery Jones takes us down memory lane and mentions that he left his home of Antigua in 1967, getting his athletic start in the sport of boxing. Jones was apparently too big to be any good in boxing, so he transitioned to a more better sport in professional wrestling. Sorry, boxing fans. Despite his struggle to consistently win, Special Delivery then says he still has goals of becoming a champion in the World Wrestling Federation. I think you should keep dreaming, buddy. We're then treated to some traditional island music from Antigua as played by the band called the Pace Setters. As Jones is too depressed to talk about his career that's on life support, it's time to dance the sadness away. While SD Jones dances his sadness away in the background, Lord Alfred Hayes takes time to answer the weekly fan mail. The first question, and the only question, wants to know whether or not the WWF has any plans on bringing any events out to the West Coast and California. Instead of answering the question, Vince instead brings out Tony Altimore to talk about the good old days. This fossil Altimore says that he's been wrestling for so long that when he was a young boy, he used to idolize Lord Alfred Hayes. Careful, Tony, though. I don't want you to talk and make jokes so much that you run out of liquids.
All right, there. What a snarl. Look at that expression on your face.
Yeah, okay, you may have looked great in 1964, but in 1984, you look more like the Crypt Keeper. Tony Altimore is famous for many things, most notably his 13-year-long tag team with Captain Lou Albano. Tony says that his tag team with Captain Lou Albano came to an end when Captain Albano developed an obsession with making money by becoming a manager. Altimore condemns this decision, but all I have to ask is, who cares? Captain Lou Albano has cemented his legacy. The only cementing that you've done, Tony Altimore, is the cement shoes you've placed on your own career by not following suit. The Pace Setters return, and this time, Special Delivery Jones is performing with them, while Lord Alfred Hayes wears one of Andre the Giant's specially tailored jackets. You look like a toddler, Alfie! Andre the Giant himself is the final guest of Tuesday Night Titans, and he can barely fit in the seat provided to him. Andre is a star of professional wrestling, and one of the first stars to transcend the sport, having appeared in several TV shows and movies. Big John Studd is also another major star that is attempting to do the same, and according to Andre the Giant, both he and Big John Studd recently co-starred in a movie together. Andre claims that on the set, Studd was apparently so full of himself that it made it almost impossible to work with the man.
And I was surprised when I have to shoot that movie, Big John Studd was in that movie too. He was there all the time, and even the producer, Blair, was make me to stand up next to him, and
The topic of Andre the Giant's massive size expectedly comes up, and Andre mentions that he spends a lot of time in Japan, and when he does so, he can't help but put on a little bit more weight than normal. This is due to the fact that the Japanese people there, who are not known for their massive size, tend to look at Andre in absolute awe and can't help but feed him as a result. It's kinda cute actually. Because he is 7 feet 4 inches and close to the 500-pound mark, all of Andre the Giant's clothes have to be specifically tailored for him, something that he does while in Japan. And according to the man himself, every single piece of clothing that he owns is made in Japan due to the fact that he really admires their tailoring skills. All except for his boots.
just like they said, everything is big, it's come from. Texas.
Since Special Delivery Jones was allowed to play with the Pace Setters, Andre the Giant wants to as well, so he heads up to the stage to begin his performance and invites Vince McMahon up to perform what's known as the Fish Song. With that, another episode of Tuesday Night Titans comes to an end, and hypocrisy reigned supreme on this episode. Special Delivery Jones knows that his mediocre career is in somewhat of a stalemate at the moment, but still has the gall to say that he wants to be a champion. Senior WWF referee Dick Woehrle let his own hypocrisy and corruption shine as he revealed he actively lets different wrestlers get away with murder in the ring as long as they don't hurt him. And Andre the Giant revealed that he's more than capable of being interviewed. What am I talking about? When Andre the Giant was recently on a segment of Piper's Pit, he refused to answer any questions asked of him by Rowdy Roddy Piper himself. Questions that were more educated and catered to Andre the Giant than anything Vince McMahon could ever hope to ask. But when Andre showed up on Tuesday Night Titans, he had no issues answering any questions thrown his way. Hypocrisy. Thanks for tuning into another special episode of Tyler Vance Rants. Don't forget to like the video, hit the bell, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can also follow me on social media where there's plenty of fun wrestling stuff for you to check out, and I would hope you share the video with your family and friends. Please and thank you. That's it for me for now. So long. 2 pieces at once? 3? It's all a walk in the park for Chiger. According to Dick, every time I say his name, I have to laugh. Instead of answering the question, Vince McMahon, he lets different wrestlers get away with different things. Bees in the trap. Bees in the trap.